In this video, we are going to talk about the top 10 ancient kings. So before starting, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for future updates. Ancient history spanned 5,000 years, and thousands of outstanding ancient monarchs ruled over that little period. This is a list of ancient military rulers, as well as kings and emperors. These are people that built massive empires or simply led their people admirably. These monarchs' deeds altered the course of history. This is a ranking of the 10 most powerful ancient rulers in history. Number 10. Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang was the first Chinese emperor and the first man to unite the country. He was a fantastic leader and strategist. By allying with foes from afar, he was able to defeat the enemies that were close to him. Qin was seen as a stern but capable king after unifying China. Under his leadership, the country prospered, and he even began construction on the Great Wall of China. He also constructed a vast new road system and a massive mausoleum. The famous terracotta army is housed within the mausoleum. He grew increasingly afraid of death as he grew older, and he tried feverishly to discover the secret of immortality. He was so frightened of death that he would stroll around at night with a crossbow in his hand. He had a dream that he was going to be slain by a sea creature one night. Qin had his alchemists and court physicians develop an elixir of life that would allow him to live indefinitely, but this elixir, paradoxically, was what killed him. Mercury and arsenic were used by the alchemists in the hopes of making him eternal. Unfortunately, he died of mercury and arsenic poisoning. Number 9. Pachacuti. He who overturns space and time, his name indicates. Pachacuti was the monarch of Cusco, and he effectively expanded the kingdom into a massive empire. Despite starting out modest, under Pachacuti's leadership, they quickly grew to rival even the much greater Khmer. The kingdom grew into the Inca Empire, which was possibly the largest empire in the 16th century by the 1500s. He made Machu Picchu, Peru's most famous site, his personal estate. Number 8. Menes. Menes was a pharaoh of Egypt who unified Upper and Lower Egypt. He was the first pharaoh in history and the founder of Egypt's first dynasty, also known as Narmer. He became a semi-mythical figure in Egypt throughout time. He was claimed to have inherited the throne directly from Horus, the Egyptian god. Menes is an enigmatic character about whom nothing is known. Historians aren't sure how long he lived or when he united Egypt. It's most likely between the 34th and the 30th centuries. Number 7. Sargon of Akkad. Sargon is famous for building the world's first known empire. Over 4,000 years ago, he conquered the Sumerian city-states and formed the Akkadian Empire. Under his dominion, the Akkadian Empire encompassed the most of Mesopotamia as well as some of the Levant. His dynasty lasted for more than a century. Sargon was revolted against near the end of his life, and famine threatened him. Afterward, in his, Sargon's, old age, all the regions revolted against him, and they besieged him in Akkad. And Sargon went forth to fight and overcame them. He completed their fall, and their spreading force he destroyed, according to the Chronicle of Early Kings. After that, he assaulted the province of Subarta with all his strength, and they surrendered to his arms. And Sargon put an end to the insurrection and conquered them. He overthrew them and decimated their vast army. And he took their spoils to Akkad. He removed the soil from Babylon's trenches and rebuilt Akkad's borders to look like Babylon's. But because of the wickedness he had done, the great Lord Marduk was enraged, and famine wiped off his people. They opposed him from the rise of the sun to the lowering of the sun, never allowing him to rest. Sargon became a fabled creature in ancient literature long after he died. Number 6. Ashoka Maurya. Maurya is regarded as one of India's most illustrious ancient emperors and the first to unite the Indian subcontinent. From 268 BC until 232 BC, he was the ruler of the Maurya dynasty. By conquering the Kalinga kingdom, Ashoka established his empire. The Kalinga was a state that his forefathers had never been able to vanquish, but Maurya did it in a catastrophic conflict. Maurya grew to regret the conflict because it resulted in over 100,000 deaths. He eventually converted to Buddhism and made it his mission to preach Buddhism throughout his realm. at the age of 72, he died in Pataliputra, the capital of his empire. Number 5. Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was one of history's greatest military commanders. He is well known for his book The Art of War. The Art of War is a manual for rulers and generals who aspire to win in war. The book is still read and studied by businesspeople all over the world, and it is regarded as one of ancient China's 7 military classics. Sun Tzu demonstrated that his methods worked when he went to war and defeated his foes. Sun Tzu led the Wu forces to victory at the Battle of Boju, where they fought a Chu army 10 times their own strength. Wu led a force of barely 33,000 men into combat, but Chu led a force of 300,000. The Chu men were almost entirely slaughtered or captured, while the Wu forces sustained relatively minor casualties. Number 4. Trajan. Trajan is probably Rome's greatest emperor and unquestionably one of history's most important ancient kings. He went further than anybody else in history in expanding Roman control. Trajan was one of Rome's greatest military commanders as well as one of its most humanitarian leaders. Trajan's reign was prosperous for Rome. The Senate named him the best ruler in 117 AD. Number 3. Alexander the Great. Alexander III of Macedon is regarded as one of history's most successful monarchs. By the age of 30, he had established one of the world's most powerful empires. Alexander was the king of Macedonia, Egypt's pharaoh, Persia's king, and Asia's king. Until the age of 16, he was instructed by the famed philosopher Aristotle. His empire was in shambles once he died. His generals and heirs turned against each other, forming independent states that tore the empire apart. Reached the ends of the world, and the big outer sea, Alexander dreamed. His warriors were homesick, and it was the sole reason he stopped conquering. It's impossible to estimate how much more of the world he could have conquered if he had lived longer or if he hadn't died so young. 2. King Hammurabi. One of the most well-known ancient rulers is Hammurabi. He created the Code of Hammurabi, which is one of the oldest known codes of laws. The code, which was found in 1901, has a number of intriguing laws. It established criteria for how much an ox or doctor should be paid, which seems like an early type of minimum wage. In general, there are 282 laws that are roughly based on the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This commandment is particularly well known. If a man destroys another man's eye, they shall destroy his eye. They will break a man's bone if he breaks theirs. If a freeman's sight is destroyed or his bone is broken, he must pay 1 gold mina. If one breaks a man's slave's bone or destroys his eye, he must pay 1/2 of his price. He established laws for trade, divorce, sexual behavior, and a variety of other topics. Some of the rules were quite harsh. For example, anyone caught stealing would be executed, and if a son struck his father, his hands would be severed. Number 1. Alaric the Visigoth. In 410, Alaric the Visigoth is credited with sacking Rome. He was the Visigoths' first ruler. Alaric served in the Roman army as well as a Gothic soldier. This means he was well-trained and extremely knowledgeable about both the Gothic and Roman armies. Alaric attacked Italy in 401, but was defeated. He invaded again a year later, but was beaten once more. One of Emperor Flavius Honorius's generals was suspected of making a bargain with Alaric. In retaliation, he assassinated the general and slaughtered tens of thousands of Goth wives and children serving in the Roman military. This was a terrible mistake, since it resulted in 30,000 Visigoth troops turning on Rome to exact vengeance on their family. They were headed by Alaric, who sacked Aquileia and Cremona. Alaric invaded Rome twice, each time succeeding in being bought off by Rome. However, they repeatedly deceived him, and he conquered Rome once more. He sacked it for 3 days this time. Who you think was greatest king in history? Let us know in the comment box below. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. Thank you.